Hey, hi everybody. We're now at the 7th of Tevet, the night of the 7th of Tevet, and this is workshop number 23. Workshop 23, and in some sense, I thought it would be neat to sort of spend maybe tonight and maybe next week. I'm not sure how many I'd like to do on this topic, but it's a pretty interesting topic, and I think it's also a very important topic. And what is the topic? The four fundamental elements of creation, which you probably all heard about, certainly from from the ancient Greeks and so on, and all the other ancient theologies and ideologies, and even in medicine and the ancient medical tracts and so on. But really, it really all originates from the Torah, and it originates, and most of the information about this is found in sort of Kabbalistic or Hasidic sources. So it's something that maybe you're not that familiar with, but we really need to be familiar with it, because if you are reading, for example, works of Breslov, you're reading Likutei Moharan and other works, you'll find that these things come up like all the time. Reading the Zohar, from time to time, you may end up with a quotation from the Zohar and something you're learning, and you'll come across these four foundational elements, or you'll come across what are called the four biles, or the four fluids, the four humours. But really, that's not the most important thing. We're going to learn that here tonight. I hope. What we really want to do is just set that up, spend a little bit of time on that, just so we are aware of it. But rather, you only use that as a springboard to get to the main meat of the matter, which is what I really want to talk about, which is the more, quote, relevant or practical thing for us, which is the good character traits, or chas v'chalila, the bad character traits that are embedded in these four foundational building blocks of creation, and therefore how we have to work throughout our entire life to purify out the bad and only remain with the good. So this is really a bit of a moose or schmooze over the next, let's say, tonight, B'ezrat Hashem, next week. How do we actually go about doing this? First of all, what are these bad character traits that are embedded in a sense, in our very essence? And then once we know what they are and what their derivatives are, then hopefully we'll learn about how we can get rid of them. What are the best strategies to get rid of them? What does Rabbi Nachman say about getting rid of them? And what the opposites of the bads are? What are the actual good character traits that we want to have instead of the bad character traits? So that's a bit of a setup. So let's now. So what you have, you should have your notes, your source sheet, and you should also have a sheet if you have it, which is just an empty table. Mine, I've written a few things in it already, so I don't forget what I want to say. And if you want to, you can fill out the tables throughout the course of the shiur tonight, or the workshop, if you want to. You don't have to, but it's the way, at least my brain works. People that know me well, that I learn with a lot, they know I like to see things. I'm a visual learner in some respects. I read a lot. Words are important, obviously, but sometimes I cannot understand a certain Gemara unless I draw it out. So I like create a little picture, and then this goes there. Then all of a sudden it kind of emerges, and I can see things. We all need to learn how we learn. We all need to be aware about how each of us individually learn, because that's a very important strength to us. And if we're trying to be forced into a learning situation that's not in accordance with that, it can be very frustrating to us. So just as a side point, if you're not aware of how you learn best, work on it, because it's very important for you. All right, so we're going to start here now. That's the introduction. Let's start with a quotation from Likutei Moharan, Torah Dalet, which is Torah number 4 in Sif or Od Chet. So 4 subsection 8. And again, we're just cutting right into the middle of a long discussion, a big, long teaching. But I think it's okay that we just cut this out and use it to amplify what we want to talk about. If you want to learn the rest of it on your own, by all means, you should do that if you're able to. Okay, let's see what Rabbi Nachman says. Ki ze yadua. This is known. Shekol hamidot ra'ot v'toldotehen nimshachim me'arba yesodot. He says, really? I didn't know this. But it says that this is known, that all of the bad character traits, the bad midot, and their derivatives, all kind of drawn down from the 4 foundational building blocks of creation. That's how I'm going to translate the word yesodot. It really means foundations. But what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that creation is really rooted in these 4 building blocks. They're not like, boron and silicon and lithium and hydrogen, helium. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a very, very high upper world idea that's really beyond my asaga. But what is brought down in the sources is that creation is really built up from these four major building blocks. Me arba marot. So also, Rabbi Nachman adds that also these bad character traits come from these four bitters. That's the simplest way to translate the phrase. But we don't usually talk about the four bitters like something bitter, like coffee. Coffee has a bitter taste, right? So the four bitters. What are the four bitters? In more normal parlance, most of the way that most people talk about these four bitters, they call them the four biles or the four fluids or the four humours. Now, the four humours, today we just think the word humor means to be funny, right? But the word humor really comes from the word, I think it's a Latin or Greek word, I forget what it is, but it actually means a liquid. So the four humours are really the four liquids that like stream through these four foundations and really provide a life force to everything in creation. They're called four bitters for reasons which we'll get to later. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But again, there can be bad character traits that can emerge from these four humours. Now Rabbi Nachman says this is known. So he's not trying to prove this to us, just stating it as a fact, because anybody who's well versed in, for example, Kabbalah knows this. Okay, well, we're not well versed in Kabbalah, so we don't know this. So we might have thought, oh, I didn't know that. That's okay. Now you know it. So let's go from there. Kamuva b'mishnat Chasidim. There's a book called Mishnat Chasidim, and I've given you the source in that sefer where you can find it. Sadly, I could not find anywhere online where that sefer is written out, where you can read it textually online. All I could find was a PDF file of it, and I wasn't able to copy out of it. So I'm not able to bring down the source from that. Although I read in a sefer I have here, but I'm not going to type out a whole large section from the book manually. Rather, I provided some source material from something that another source, which is below here, Sha'arei Kedushah, which is a work by Reb Chaim Vital, who was the main Talmud of the Arizal, and he also brings some of this down as well. And so we're actually going to use his source material as opposed to Mishnat Chasidim source material, but they're both basically saying the same thing. Now, what are these four bad character traits? Let's see what Rabbi Nachman said. Atzvut v'toladehen nimshach mi domem. What is that? First of all, he says atzvut. What is atzvut? Well, normally it means sadness, but oftentimes with Rabbi Nachman it means depression. Sadness, depression, morbidity, melancholy, whatever you want to call it, all that negative emotion that people have in their lives that's very rampant in our world today, and the derivative things that stem from that. Rabbi Nachman says those things come from this aspect of the soul called domim. We're going to talk about it a little bit more as we go on. Domim means something inanimate, like a rock, right? Or sand or a piece of dirt or whatever. Those are inanimate things. That's what the word domim means. Just sits there. Just sits there. There's nothing animating it. Hence, that's the idea of atzvut or depression. What you think about it logically, even psychologically, people who are very depressed, what do? They just sit there. They don't do anything. They're just depressed. So they lie in bed all day long, and they sit on the couch all day long. Well, then they don't do anything. That's what he's saying. He said atzvut, and which is a bad character trait. That comes from this aspect inside the soul called domim. Let's go on, because we're going to come back to this. We're going to flesh this out more as we go on. This is just an introduction. Next one, tavot ra'ot, which is bad lust, bad. There's not such thing as a good lust. So desires, bad desires. V'toladehen nimshachim mi someach. So this is now the second one, and he's telling us these lusts. Basically, we'll just call it lusts. Lusts for pleasure and all the things that are derived from that, they come from this aspect of the soul called someach. What's someach? Someach is a vegetable. It's not a vegetable like a cucumber. It just means the vegetative world, plants, basically. Okay, so and we know this because we know there's these four major kingdoms. Even in biology, we exclude, for example, viruses and bacteria from the story for a second, but we just look at basic stuff. Most people say there's four major parts of the world. There's inanimate things. There's plants, or we're called vegetable, and then we say the third one is animal, and the fourth one is man, right? So this is what he's talking about. But all of these aspects of the soul are actually in us. They're the parts of the soul, the four parts of the human soul. And from those things can emerge good character traits or bad character traits. In this case, Rabbi Nachman is telling us about the bad ones that emerge from them. So from this aspect of the soul called somer, called vegetable, comes forth these bad character traits of lust. Next one. Devarim betelim. What's that? That means useless words. I'll just go idle chatter, just jabbering away, right? That has no purpose whatsoever except just to be heard, just because you can't keep your mouth quiet. V'tolodehen nimshachim mechai. So this bad character traits and those that are connected to it, things like lashon hara and so on, which we'll get to, they're rooted and they are drawn down from the aspect of the soul called chai, which we'll call the animal aspect of the soul. And the last one is ga'ava, or gaiva, if you want to pronounce it that way, arrogance, pride, vitolodotehen. I don't know if I'm saying it right. That's my dyslexic problems. But anyway, nimshachim mi medaber. Those bad character traits come from the aspect of the soul called medaber, which means the speaker or speaking, and it refers to man. So we have these four aspects within us. Well, at the very lowest level, we have inanimate aspects within us. Then we have a level above that called the vegetable level. And then we have above that the animal level. And then we have above that, we'll call it the human level. And it's all part of our soul. Let's go on. Somebody who wants to go in the holy way, okay, according to Hashem's Torah, kol hamidot farod. Yeah, he's got to break all of it. It's like, I'll break all of it. It's like impossible. So see, once you realize what Chassidut is all about and what Rabbi Nachman is all about, you realize nothing is impossible. It only comes down to will and how much effort we put into something. And he's telling us here, if we want to walk in the holy way, we have to break every one of these bad character traits and their derivatives. Which is something we'll get into, I hope, maybe next week. But when I have to talk and tell about those things to a Talmid Chacham, what does that mean? Hainu bidui dvarim. One must confess with words how he's messed up. And again, this is a big topic. It's a controversial topic for sure, but we'll have to explain it in a separate set of classes or sessions. V'Talmid Chacham yefaresh v'varer lo derech lefi shorish nishmato. What that sage is able to do is he's able to guide a person according to the root of his soul, because he can see the root of the soul. He has this kind of chokhmah. So not just like a basic, Talmid Chacham you might think of. He means like a real tzaddik here who really has awareness and can see the upper worlds, and he can see exactly where your soul is rooted. And as a result, he can provide tikkunim for you that can help you along your path as you're repairing all of the things that you need to repair in life. All right, this is what Rabbi Nachman says, and he just says, like, this is known. Now, Rabbi Nachman does not, in this Torah, explain anything more about this directly, because the main point of his Torah is the latter part, which is that one must go to a tzaddik, one must go to a Talmid Chacham of his generation, and do vidui, and so on and so on. That's like the main thrust of this Torah Dalit. But Rabbi Nachman just says this like on the side, and he expects us to like know it. So most of us don't know it. So when you're reading it, you're like, oh, what's going on? So you have to fill the gap. Okay, so this is what this is about tonight, is an attempt to try to fill the gap. Now, if you were paying attention and you have your paper and you have your pencil, you should have been able to already fill out part of your table, right? Part of your table. Because what we have learned, the way I'm going to suggest you do this is the lower levels you put at the bottom of the table, and the upper levels you put at the top of the table. That means so far you should be able to put in the column that says aspect of the soul. You should be able to put in now in that column the 4 aspects of the soul we've just mentioned, which is on the bottom, domem, which now you can write in what that means. Domem means inanimate. And then above that would be someach. And then above that would be chai, which is in the animal level. And above that would be medaber, which is man. So you could actually fill out the column called aspect of the soul. Now, that's about all you can do at this point, right? Because we don't really know what these 4 humours are, what these 4 biles are, these 4 bitters are. And we don't know what the 4 fundamental building blocks are yet. But at least we know that there are these 4 aspects of the soul, and Rabbi Nachman actually tells us what they are and what they're called. All right. Any questions before we go weiter? I see there's something here in the chat. How can I see it in the chat? I can look down here. How come I don't see it in your chat there? Just a reminder that the 10th of Tevet, right. So that's going to be Thursday night. Thursday night, which actually is the beginning of the 10th of Tevet. So the fasting starts in the morning. Are we fasting on Friday or no? We fast on Thursday because of, I have to look that up.
No, we fast on Fridays. The only fast that can actually go a little bit into Shabbos.
Okay, I was wondering about that one. I knew there was one, I couldn't remember. Okay, fine.
Same as last year.
Okay. All right, so fine. So now we've kind of set it up. We have 4 building blocks, which we don't know what they're called yet. And we have 4 aspects of the soul, which are derived from those, which we do know what they are called. And we know that from each of them can come bad character traits. And we've also listed them. So you can actually write them in the bad character traits column. Like at the bottom, right? Keneged domem, you could write in atzvut, or just, or depression, if you want to. And above that, corresponding to tzumeach, you could write in pleasures, seeking pleasures all the time, lust for pleasures. And above that one, corresponding to chai, the animal level, you could put in idle chatter, right? Devarim betalian. And above that, keneged medaber, you could put in gaiva, arrogant. So you do this on your own. I don't want to keep going back to the table all the time, but it's something you can do if you want to, so that when you're all done, you have a nice little table that you can kind of put up in the fridge, and you can be reminded of the main points of this to help you throughout the course of the week and throughout your life. So now I told you that Rabbi Nachman referred to a sefer called Mishnat Chasidim, where this is all brought down in detail, which I couldn't provide for you in any easy way. Rather, I provided this source for you because I did find it online, and it basically says the same thing. This is from Reb Chaim Vital, and he writes in a sefer called Sha'arei Kedushah the following. And again, this gets very deep and it's like very Kabbalistic, and I don't want to like spend time really getting deep about it, and I really try to just like cut little bits and pieces out, so we at least have some idea what some of these things are. Because the point of this workshop tonight is not to get into all the deep secrets of the 4 building blocks or the 4 aspects of the soul and whatever. That's not the point. The point is to focus on the character traits. So we'll get there, but just so in case you ever come across these things again, and you will come across them again, just a little bit of background. So let's see some of these extracts that I pulled out of this sefer, Sha'arei Kedushah. And in the very first part, Aleph and Aleph. Okay, so Chelek Aleph and then Shar Aleph. So Hine Ka'asher Chata Be'etz Dat Torah. So when man did the sin, ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, Garam Ta'rovet Hazeh B'chol Olamot. He says that what that caused was all the worlds got all mixed with good and bad. Everything in creation got infected with this mixture of good and bad. Everything. There's nothing that doesn't have in it a combination of good and bad. It's a shocking concept. Now, so this is not so. Therefore, the actual physical body of man, the goof of a person, right? This is the same thing. These four foundational building blocks, whatever they're called, we don't know yet. But those things, those mystical ideas, is what goes into the creating the physical goof of a man. And those things themselves include good and bad. So our physical body is literally a combination of good and bad. The goof adam notzer minatov shebe'arba'a yesodot. This word tov doesn't necessarily mean direct tov. It means like the better part. It says, but the physical body of man comes from or is formed out of the more loftier aspect of these four building blocks. What are the four building blocks? Here we go. Here they're in bold on your page. Eish, ruach, mayim, afar. Translations: fire, air, or wind, whatever you want to call it, wind, breath, air, water, and dirt, or earth. People say earth. So in English, they usually say like earth, wind, and fire. That was a rock band way back when. Earth, wind, and fire, and earth, wind, fire, and then water. Right. So those are four basic building blocks. And the ancient Greeks, everybody knew this stuff. It's funny because if you look in the if you look on the internet to find out, all like Hippocrates and Galen, all these Socrates and all these guys, they all knew this. But the way these articles are written, it's as if that's where it emerged from. Like all this stuff came out of the ancient Greeks, It's like, no, it didn't. It came from the Jews. It came from our Torah. And from there, the other peoples in the world picked it up and did with whatever they did with it. Anyway, that's a separate point. So now you go to your table and you can write from the bottom. From the bottom, you would write afar, earth. Okay, and then mayim is the next level up, and then ruach is the next level up, and the highest level is eish. Okay, so and he put them in order here for you. He put them in order from top to bottom. The first column, the fundamental building block. So in the fundamental building block column on the top, you would have fire, eish. Below that, you'd have ruach. Below that, you have mayim. And below that, the bottom is afar. So now you can immediately see connections. The reason that I like drawing pictures and charts is because you can immediately see and visualize connections, right? This whole idea of the Shoemaker report, if you look at it, the actual byline says connecting worlds. So there's many aspects of the idea in my mind about connecting worlds, but that's what it is. We have to connect different worlds, different ideas. So we're connecting these four building blocks. We now connected them to the four aspects of the soul. And we connected them to four bad character traits. So we're connecting all kinds of ideas now. In other words, for example, you now know that fire, eish, is connected to the aspect of the soul called medaber. You now know that because it's on your page. If you took your pencil and you wrote it out, and you're now putting this thing together in a visual, so you can see it with your eyes, and hopefully it can be embedded in your mind, you're beginning to see these connections. You also now know, for example, that earth, afar, dirt, is connected to the aspect of the soul called domem. That makes a bit of sense even to us because domem is it sits there, right? Domem is an inanimate thing like dirt, and that's connected to the bad character trait of depression. So you can start to do this. I can't speak all this out for you. All I can do is help you to put together the picture, and then you spend time on your own. You have to do homework. All right, continuing on back with Sha'arei Kedushah, Rav Bital says the following: Amnan min hara shebahen notzro buguf arba marot shem. So it doesn't necessarily mean like the bad, total bad. It just means that the less good aspects of these building blocks comes out. You create these four fluids. I don't know, but I don't know how to translate. I told you already. I have a problem translating this word mara. It literally means bitter, but it really means fluids. Or the ancient word that people use was humours, which again means fluids. But also mara also means bile, because some of them are actually biles. What are they? He says here, white and black and red, and Euroka, which is green/yellow. There's a big debate amongst Mukubalim. Is this thing really green? Is this yellow? I don't want to get into that. So without getting into into that machloket, I'll just call it green yellow and leave it at that. So these are the four fluids that literally run through life and give vitality to life, and really give vitality to everything. So, for example, the black bile, where's that now? Where are you going to put that on your chart? Even just logically, where do you think black bile is going to go? On the bottom, exactly. The black bile, the mara, it's actually mara shchora. I love that phrase, mara shchora. It means like black bitter. The black bitters. It's like just depression. You don't want the light on. You want turn the light off. I want it to be dark. Like really, like real morbid. People can get very, very depressed. Very tragic thing. I know a lot about it. I was an expert in it for a long time. Okay, so that's called shor. Then above that, which would be keneged water, keneged mayim, which is keneged somek. There you would have the white one, the one that is levana, right? That's the mara levana. That's white, and most people call that in English phlegm, because it's a clearish kind of liquid. Now I'm speaking physically now, not spiritually, but on a physical level, right? There is this idea that there's phlegm, like liquid saliva and stuff like that, mucus that's kind of clear. Oh, by the way, the black one on the bottom is basically this liquidy goo that can come out of a spleen if it's like ruptured, like basically decaying blood cells and stuff like that. It's like blackish. Okay, but that's not really the relevant point in any of this. Above that is therefore Euroka, which is the green or yellow bile, which actually is mostly what people call bile, so like a greenish, yellowish color. And on the top is the humor, is the fluid called red, aduma. And what's the fluid called red? Duh, it's blood, right? And that corresponds to fire, which makes sense. Okay, because blood is red, fire is red. Okay, so you can see all the stuff on your own. I don't want to spend a lot of time going into that. I want to spend we got to get through this to get to the meat and potatoes, which is the actual character traits. So now we filled out the building block column, we filled out the aspect of the soul column, we filled out the humor column. Now, this next column in your chart, which is tetragrammaton, sphere, world, level of the soul, section of tefillah, I put it there because it's kind of cool and interesting, but it's not really the main thread of the class tonight. So I'm going to leave it blank for you. If you want to try to fill it out, it's homework like for the week, and then come back to me, maybe in texting me or whatever, and say, did I do it right? Or if you want help to try to do it, that's fine. But I just put it in here because these four things also connect to other four things all over the world. Because once you begin to realize that everything comes from these four building blocks, then you realize this permeates everything. For example, I'll just give you one. Sorry. How many letters are in Hashem's name? 4 letters. So, 4. Wow, there's 4 aspects of the soul. There's 4 building blocks of creation. Hey, I wonder if they're connected. Of course they're connected. Right? So it's things like that. So the Yud would be at the top. That would connect to fire. And then the first Hey would connect with air. And then the Vav would connect with water. And the bottom Hey would connect with earth. Anyway, so all this is what this middle column is. I don't want to spend more time on it. But just if you want to explore it on your own and look up some of the answers, go ahead and feel free to do so. And then you come back with me if you want to check. But again, these are foundational ideas that help you to see the world and help you to connect ideas that you would not normally have ever figured out how to connect before. Okay, any questions before I go further? No? Okay, we'll go further then. All right, next section, which is in Sha'arei Kedushah. Again, part Aleph in Sha'ar Bet. This is in Gates number 2. He writes the following: V'hinei inyan hamidot. Now we're getting to the issue. Okay, the issue of character traits. Ein mutbot ba'adam benefesh hashvela. They're embedded, like it really means sunk, but they're not sunk. They're literally embedded. They're imprinted in in man, in his lowly soul, in his fallen soul. Hanikrat Yisodi. This soul he calls the foundational soul of man. Haklula me'arba bechinot. Hadomem, which we've already saw. So he's saying this soul includes these four aspects. Hadomem, which is the inanimate. Vatsumachat, he uses the feminine word here. I don't know why. Vahabamit, again, he uses the feminine, which means analytic. Medaberet, which we said, Rabbi Nachman used the word medaber. He used the masculine, and for some reason, Sha'arei Kedushah uses the feminine term. Okay, I don't know why. But anyway, he said these are the four aspects of the soul, and they're embedded. Okay, these character traits are embedded in those four aspects. That's exactly what Rabbi Nachman said. Okay, going on. Ki gam hem murkavot meitov v'ra. And they're also a complex and made up of good and bad. V'nimsa ki yoter. This is really important. Okay, this is probably the most important point to start. You want to start this one. It's a bit of a shocking statement, actually, if you haven't heard it before. He says, Ki yoter tzarich lizaher mimidot harot yoter min kiyum hamitzvot aseh v'lo taseh. He said it's more important that one works on correcting one's bad midah than fulfilling the mitzvah, whether the positive ones or the negative ones. What? Shocking. Most of the time, we just hear things, oh, you got to do the mitzvahs. Of course you have to do the mitzvahs. Nobody's arguing not to do the mitzvahs. Right? Because the mitzvahs descend from their tikkunim for the 613 aspects of the goof and of the soul, which are rooted in these four aspects. Of course, you have to do the mitzvahs. But he's saying even more important than doing the mitzvah is to fix our bad character traits. Why? He bioto bal mido tavod. In order, so being this person who has good character traits, banakel yikayim call the mitzvah. You must be much easier to fulfill the mitzvah. That's why people resist the mitzvahs. Why do they? Chas v'shalom, people resist doing mitzvahs, or they may find a certain mitzvah difficult to do. They want to do it, but it's hard. It's hard. So he says the reason why it's hard, or why people resist mitzvahs, is because they have bad character traits. So if you fix your bad character traits, then all of a sudden doing the mitzvahs is way easier. Then all the blocks are gone. That's his point. That's why we have to work on our bad midas and replace them with good midas. Ukashayasiram may Allah, and when he removes these bad character traits from himself, Itlabishu otiot arba shel havaya. All of a sudden, in a sense, he gets clothed in the light of the four letters of Hashem's name, which we already. That's why I had to tell you that a little bit before. In other words, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey that are embedded in Hashem's name are themselves lights. What are they lights of? So now you can add this to your column if you want. What is the Yud the light of? It's the light of Chokhmah. What is the first Hey the light of? It's the light of Bina. Now we're giving you the actual spheres that these are the lights of. The Vav, which is the gematria of 6, we talked about this before, which is the gematria of 6, corresponds to the 6 midot, which is Chesed, Gevura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. That's the Vav. In other words, it's the light. The Vav is the light of those 6 midot. And the bottom, which is now on the bottom of your chart, Malchut, which is the sphere of the last Hey in Hashem's name, and that last Hey would also light itself. It would illuminate you, and it would illuminate your soul and your whole life. So what are these lights? Well, that's more things you have to learn. You have to learn what is the light of Chokhmah. We talked a little bit about Chokhmah already. What is the light of Bina? What is the light of Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, etc., etc.? What is the light? What are these lights? Okay, so that's we can't do everything in 1 hour. Well, that's what he says. And when you work on the bad midas, you get rid of them. And then all of a sudden, the good midas, which come from Hashem's name, the Yud Hey, the Vav Hey, those begin to shine, and you become dressed in those lights. Shame, or those things are light. The letters of Hashem's name are light. They give life. They give life. They empower that soul, that foundational soul of man. They give it life, and now you become a living soul, not just a dead walking person. Right? The Gemara talks about how people, so basically they don't do the mitzvahs. They're like a Rasha. He's just like a walking dead man. He has no life. Like he has biological life. We're not talking about biological life. He has no life. He has no life because why? Because the letters of Hashem's name are not illuminating his soul. And when the letters of Hashem's name illuminate your soul, you have life. Then you're actually alive. All right. That's the foundation of this whole concept a little bit. Now you have the building blocks, Eish, from top. Let's quickly review. Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar, which correspond to the four aspects of the soul, which are Medaber, which means man, Chai, which means animal or animalistic aspect of the soul, Someach, which is the vegetative state of the soul, corresponds to the vegetable world, Kilo, or the vegetable kingdom, also biologically speaking, and the Banan, Domem, which is inanimate. And these are all aspects of the soul which derive from the four fundamental building blocks. Also come out these four fluids or these four humours, which at the very top is the one which is red, Aduma, the one below that, which is Yeroka, which is greenish yellow, the one below that is Levana, white, the one below that is Shchora, which is black. Now, that's a whole separate topic. We don't want to get into that anymore tonight, but it's impossible not to read Kabbalistic literature or even Hasidut literature, even Rabbi Nachman, without seeing these things popping up every once in a while. Like this, Shechora and Levana and Yeroka and Aduma. What is he talking about? Okay, so that's just a little teeny bit for you, so that maybe sometime when you start to read some of these other sources and you start learning more, I heard that once, and you pull out your nice little sheet, and you'll see connections. You'll see connections. Okay, very good. Now, questions, comments? I don't see anything in the chat. Anybody want to say anything? A question? Hopefully, I'm not speaking too deeply. Okay, now we're going to start with the bad traits. Not the good one. We're going to start with the bad because that's the order that Chaim Vital puts them in. So let's continue to read in Sha'arei Kedushah. V'lachen kol hamidot ra'ot nechukot la'arba minim. All the bad character traits can be divided into four categories. So, wow, that's pretty cool. It's cool in the sense that it simplifies things. I've got like thousands of bad character traits. So yes, maybe we do. But if you start to collect them together into groups, you find, and he's telling us that there are four fundamental groups. That's it. There's not three groups, not two groups, not five groups. There's four fundamental groups of bad character traits. And so each one helps us to, when we know which one fits where, therefore, if we work on the sort of parent bad character trait in that group, then it'll have a good positive effect on all of the derivative character traits. See, that's why it's important to know this. Okay, first one is that corresponds to Yesod Eish, which is fire. We now know that. All right. So we're going to go through these four fundamental building blocks again: Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Afar. We're going to see the bad character traits that are connected to each of these fundamental building blocks, which again connect to the four aspects of the soul, so on and so on. So. All right. Yesod Eish mimenu nimshechet hagaiva hanikrat gasot haruach. So I say gaiva. I know in Ivrit you're supposed to say gava. I'm not so good at pronouncing Ivrit, so I just say gaiva. But anyway, it means arrogance or pride. Okay, and so that comes from the yesod called fire. And that he also says is also called, you see this in Jewish literature, also like in Gemara and other places, it's called gasot ruach. What does it mean? It means thick spirit. It's thick as opposed to thin. What that means is that's just the phrase used. I'm not sure why exactly it's used, but that's what's used. But it means when you see the word gasot ruach, it means somebody who's haughty, somebody who's arrogant. Lioto hayesod hakal ve'gavoa mikulam. He says this aspect of fire is being the foundation or the fundamental building block, that is the lightest and the highest of all of them. So he's telling us, make sure we put them in the right order, right? That's what we already did. That fire is at the top. That's what he says. It is the lightest and the highest of them all. Because if you think about it, a flame always goes up. If you light a candle, the flame doesn't point downward; it points upward. It always wants to go up and up and up and up. So this is the aspect on the bad side called gaiva, arrogance, because it always wants to exalt itself higher and higher and higher. Hakas. So now we're coming somewhere. He says anger is actually included in the attribute of gaiva. He's not saying that anger is a derivative of gaiva. He's not saying that. He's saying rather that they're really like two. They go together like heads and tails on a coin. We haven't gotten to the derivative yet. So now in your bad character trait column, you can write in, gaiva, arrogance / anger, because he's telling us that those things are included together. That's the principal main bad character trait. So what's the connection between gaiva and anger? He's going to tell us. Let's see what he says. Ki mipnei hagaiva mitkas adam, because of his gaiva, the person gets mad, he gets angry, when somebody else doesn't do what he wants. Somebody doesn't do what I want, I get angry. So they're right away, the anger is connected to the gaiva. Why am I angry? Because I'm arrogant. Like, oh, that's harsh. It's like when you finally realize, like, whoa, it's like a slap in the face. But we have to face this. I don't know, you guys come to this, these sessions, you're willing to hear these things. It's much easier to hear these things when you're alone in your room. It's like I don't want to sit in the same room with the Hoshea. It's too hard. It's too hardcore. But everybody's in your own house. It's much easier. Or you read it on a piece of paper. It's also easier. You can process it, because any kind of musar is very difficult. And Rabbi Nachman specifically says, do not correct anybody. Period. The only person who can correct anybody is the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's it. Because nobody else can do it. Anybody else who tries to correct anybody else is going to cause damage to that soul. And not only to that soul, but to souls that person brings forth in the world, that now as a result of how much damage that person had, he's now twisted, and as a result, his progeny are also going to be twisted. And it's all because we tried to correct somebody when we shouldn't have done it. So Rabbi Nachman is very, very mock people. Don't try to correct. But what am I doing? Well, I'm not correcting you. I'm just providing the teaching of this. This is just good musa to help us work on ourselves. If you want to correct yourself, you correct your own self. But I don't want to do it, because it's very dangerous. All right. So anyway, that's the connection between anger and arrogance. Let's go on. But if a person had a lowly spirit, and he realized his own personal deficiencies, he knew himself what he was lacking, like not physically, but like spiritually. He'd never get angry. Like, wow. If I really was lowly of spirit and I really saw my own problems so clearly, I would never get angry. Why not? Because he's telling us here that you wouldn't get angry, because when somebody doesn't do, quote, your will, you wouldn't care. What's my will? Nothing. I don't have any will anyway. I am bitzel. I have nothing. I don't have no will. So this is why you have to get married. So you're supposed to get married because at least the guy is supposed to work and get rid of his will. So anyway, let's go on. Nimsa, so it comes out. Ki hagaiva vakas mida achat hen. The two things are really one mida, right? So gaiva, haughtiness, arrogance, and anger is really the same thing. So that's the bad mida. Now, from there he tells us vitolo dohe, whatever, vitolo deha shalos. Okay, there's 3 derivatives, tolodots, right? That come from this. So now you can, in your box, I'll give you big boxes for that. So you can write in 1, 2, 3. What are the derivative bad character traits that come from arrogance and / anger? First one. Pak van danut be libo That's it. Yeah. Hak van de noot bilivo. What's that mean? It's like most of us are familiar with the word being makpid with somebody. That's what it means. He says, ki lule agaiva, if a person wasn't arrogant, lo haya hamakpid bilibo, he'd have no gaiva whatsoever. He would have no hakpada in his heart whatsoever. So then we need to understand what is this thing called hakpada. So if you look the word up, I don't like any translation. I have never come across a single English translation that does justice to this word. If you look it up, people say it means strict. It means I don't know, stuff like that, being strict. But it doesn't really mean being strict. What it really means is, if I have, for example, hakbara against you, or I have this thing with how do you say? He says hakfadanut in my heart. I have this bad trait of hakfadanut. What is there? What is there is that when somebody does me wrong, I never let go.
I'm bothered by it.
It's more than being bothered by it. It's like
Holding a grudge.
I'm forgiving.
A grudge.
Holding a grudge, very good. Holding a grudge, unforgiving, insisting that they do that they fix the problem and not me, and not letting go. Like it just it just eats you up. It eats you up. So that's why, yes, it is related to the idea of gevura, hence they say strictness. But it's not I'm being strict with you. That's not what it is. It's inside your heart. You are just unrelenting and you will not let go. That's what hakpada is. And he says that comes from God. Let's go on. Like we explained with respect to the subject of anger. Okay, that's number one. So this is a very, very bad trait, and we have to work on this. We have to really work on this. Especially, by the way, if somebody irritates you all the time. It's one thing if somebody irritates you once. You never see them again for another year. They irritate you again. Okay, fine, big deal. But when somebody irritates you like all the time, or the person that irritates you, like you really love that person, and all they do is just keep irritating you, and they keep rubbing you the wrong way. It's like, and you want to have good feelings with it. You really do. You really want to have good feelings for that person, and you just feel yourself completely incapable. This is what we're talking about. How can you overcome what's embedded in your soul? It's embedded in my soul. I have this hakbara in my soul. How do I get rid of that? This is what he's talking about. He says, not pashut. This is the very essence of what our lives are all about. It's not so simple to say, oh, just get rid of it, no big deal. It's not so simple. All right, let's go to the next one. The next one is Bakashat Hashara Vakavod. Lidgaot al Habriot. Seeking dominance, seeking authority, control, and honor, so that you exalt yourself over other people. I want to be in control. I want to be in charge. I want authority. I don't want this anybody else. That's number two. And the third one is next. Vahaskina, hatred. Le zulato. Al hayoto gadol mimeno. Hating somebody else who actually is greater than you. Because that's Gaiva says it's fire. Gaiva is fire. So Gaiva goes up. So my flame has got to reach higher than your flame. And if my flame doesn't reach higher than your flame, then I'm going to hate you. That's where hatred comes from. Hatred comes from arrogance. That's the first one. That's the first one. Tough stuff. Tough stuff. But this is what we're here for in order to fix. And if we can fix all these, and the point is that Rabbi Nachman believes it is possible. Because he says, let's go back to what Rabbi Nachman said. He says, somebody who wants, somebody wants to go in Hashem's ways, he has to break them all. He wouldn't tell us that if he didn't believe it was possible. It is possible. It just requires dedicated effort and work all the time, and there are strategies. That's what we'll hopefully get into as time goes by. If we don't know the strategies, it's going to be exceedingly frustrating all the time. You keep trying to fix it, and you never seem to be successful, and you're going to get what? Depressed. which is going to feed off of the whole problem and give you more of that bad character on the bottom of the whole pile, which is the foundation of everything else. You see, so this is the problem. If we don't know the strategies and how to do it, and it's not pashut, the strategies are not pashut, not simple. You just can't invent them. You say a few prayers here and there, and you just hope that tomorrow you're going to be not arrogant. No, it doesn't work that way. There are literal strategies that work and strategies that do not work. And if we spend all of our time working on strategies that don't work, we're wasting our time. And that's sadly what most of us do. It's true. Most of us do not know the strategies that work. And this is what B'ezrat Hashem we're going to get into in future classes, because we need to know the strategies that work. We want to know, what is a success formula? How do I do this? And Mamash, if you actually pay attention to Rabbi Nachman's strategy, do what he says, and other sources, you will literally succeed at it. You will succeed at this. And you're like, wow, amazing. What's happening to me? What happened to me? Who am I all of a sudden? This isn't me. That is you. The other thing wasn't you. Okay. So we're realizing who is the real us. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're not going to finish this, I don't think, today, but maybe we will. We'll see. All right, next one is from Yesod Ruach. Now, this one comes from the foundational building block of creation called Ruach, air, wind, breath. So, Mimenu Nimshach Dibor, from this element comes out speech. Hanikra Sicha Batela Lidvarim She'ein Bahen Sor Kalal. O Nafshi O Gufani. So this is speaking words, okay, that have useless, that have no purpose whatsoever for any need of the soul or any need of the body. Just words. Blah, 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 blah. Because I can't keep my mouth shut. I always have to be talking all the time. This is what he calls, this is a bad character trait, and it just creates, it's just air, So, and we all do this. Not like somebody, yes, each of us may be, quote, worse at certain ones than others. That's true. And we can identify that with ourselves. Sometimes we look at other people, we say, oh yeah, that person, It's not the point. The point is to look at ourselves and identify our weaknesses and work on our problems. But this is a problem that we certainly all can fall into. We just say things that have no need. What do you mean? Go through life not saying anything that has no need? It's like, what? See, there are people that are actually like that. I've met people like that. The blessing to see people, there are really people, tzaddikim, that literally, they do not open their mouth unless there's some need. Nothing out of the mouth is useless. Wow. And we can achieve that. We can achieve that. Okay, what does he say? He says, next words are V'tolo de tav arba'ah. And its derivatives are 4. That's good to know. 4. And what there? Ledeber chenef. Chenef is flattery. Speaking flattery. About trying to make other people puff them up so you get your own will. What do they say with that expression? Icing, no, not icing the cake. What is that? Greasing the skids or something like that. You're trying to butter up somebody so that eventually you're going to get your own will done. Next one is shakarim, falsehoods, lies. Next one, lashon hara. Lashon hara gives a huge magic. Most people know about lashon hara because of the work of the Chofetz Chaim. It's wonderful. But and so in that category of lashon hara is many subderivatives and all these things. It's like a big upside down tree. And the last one is, where is it? V'liglot shivachav labriot lihitgadel bifnehem. Basically, to talk about your own praise, boast. It's been boasting, bragging to other people in order to make yourself great in their presence. Oh, I'm like this. I did this, right? And boy, I tell you, if you start paying attention to this, you can catch stuff all day long doing stuff like this. That's like these I do. It's like, wow. It's just tough. So these are the 4 categories of useless chatter, useless speech. All right, the next one. Okay, well, we're going to finish the four. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll finish the four bad traits. We'll do the B'ezrat Hashem, the four good ones next time. Okay, what's the third? The third one comes from the Yesod HaMayim, comes from the foundational building block called water. Again, not physical water. It's a spiritual building block of creation called water. Mimenu ta'avat hata'anugim. Comes these desires, these lusts for pleasure. Pleasures, plural, pleasures. Ki chen hamayim matzmichim kol minei tanu. Because water, why is it, now he's looking maybe physically, I'm not sure, but water kind of like makes all pleasures grow. Because if you're in a desert, there's not much there. There's not much to get pleasure out of it if you're in a desert. So you had water, you had rain, you had pools of water, all these things grow. Plants grow, animals grow, things grow, and all of a sudden you can, I can drink this, and I can eat that, and I can look at this thing, and I can indulge in this thing. So all these types, bad types, desiring for pleasure. And you know, some people, chas v'shalom, any Jew would fall in this category, but their whole life is just about trying to find pleasure, just seeking pleasure. Go for one, and of course you have to have a lot of money to do this. And so, but that's all they did. All they want out of life is just, how can I get the next pleasure? How can I get the next pleasure? How can I get the next pleasure? And this is a very, very terrible thing, because your life is useless. But that's all. That's all we are. Vitolodoteha. I think I said it right there. Vitolodoteha. Stein. There's only two derivatives from this one. Chemda, which is Chemda is like greedy. Ligzol mamon chavero, to steal like money or property from his friend or from somebody else. Vishto, to take somebody else's wife. V'chol she'elo, anything that the other guy has. Lit aneg behem, in order to enjoy them. So that's called chemda, or greed, just wanting stuff that other people have, and literally wanting it so bad that you'd be willing to go out and actually take it. So why you want it? Because you want the pleasure of it. Somebody has a nice car, so you steal it. Chas v'shalom. Covet, yeah, covet. Yeah, covet is a good translation. Yeah, greed and covet, I think they're synonymous. Yeah. Because I think in the English translations of the Ten Commandments, it typically says, do not covet. Right. So it means don't be greedy, but covet, greed, and good. Same thing. And the second one is kina. Kina is jealousy. So there are actually two separate issues. What is jealousy? Jealousy is, here it says, ki yikane bechavero, somebody who is jealous of somebody else, of the other guy. Ashir lo mamon rav. For example, the other guy has a lot of money, so I'm jealous of that. Like, I want all the money. I don't want him to have all the money. Jealousy is you don't want the other guy to have what he has. And the first one, which is greed, is I want to take what the other guy has. So jealousy and greed, or jealousy and what'd you say? Covetousness, are very, very bad attributes. He says here, no, you need to enjoy just pleasure. So these are two very, very bad character traits. Once again, they are covetousness / greed, which basically is to the point that you will literally take what somebody else has in order to derive pleasure from it. And the other one is jealousy, which is you're not willing to take it. You just harbor and what's this? Not manifest. You just boil this terrible feeling inside of you. You just can't let it go. That's jealousy. Somebody else has a really nice big house. Oh man! And you start to you instead of being content with what you have, because Hashem gave you everything that you need to have. And if you needed to have a big house, you'd have a big house. As long as you don't need to have a big house. So those come from water, pleasure. And we did talk about things like niyuf would also come from here, right? The desire for niyuf and other kinds of lewd kinds of things that also derives from water as well. And the last one is Yesod Afar, what comes from dirt? What comes from earth? Mimeno midat atzvut. We said this already. Depression, sadness, b'chol pratam, in all of its details. It's like, oh wow, all the details. You know, the whole psychological world today makes everything out of these, makes money, lots and lots and lots of money. Big pharma makes lots and lots of money off this. Because people are terribly depressed in our generation, and Rabbi Nachman knew that, and he's going to provide you with ways to become undepressed. There's only one derivative of depression. What is it? Atzlut is laziness. Laziness, not just laziness in general. He says what kind of laziness? Atzlut l'kayem haTorah v'mitzvot. Mipnei itzvono al hasagat kinyane hevle olam hazeh. Basically, he's just lazy to do the mitzvahs. He doesn't want to learn Torah. He doesn't want to do the mitzvahs because he's a little depressed and sad. And he's more interested in basically acquiring the things of this world. He wants to go out and work, you know, like 10 hours a day and make lots of money so he can get all these things that we talked about before. So he may not be lazy in the sense of, he may be very hardworking, but he has no desire. He's completely lazy at Kedusha. Or al ha-yisurim haba'im Allah, or these kind of difficulties, the suffering that comes upon him. He doesn't care. He doesn't do anything about it. He doesn't figure out where are these coming from. Veno somech b'chalkol v'shum davar. He's not happy with his lot in life in any way whatsoever. So we now just got a little bit of a hint. What is the rectification for depression, which is obviously being happy? And how do you be happy? You have to be happy in what Hashem gives you. Be happy in your own lot in life. So gameno lo tisaba osha. The person is not satisfied. He's not satisfied with money because he doesn't care. He's just lost out on everything. He's just like a walking dead man. So obviously it's a couple minutes past the hour, so we have to stop. So if you have to leave, feel free to leave. No insult. It's going to wrap up. So we didn't cover at this point the corresponding good traits, which is what we need to get to, because it kind of leaves us a bit of a downer right now. So I apologize for that. But the point is, over the next week, you can take this little summary and take it with you and start thinking in Hibodedut, in prayer, meditation, whatever you're walking, you're driving the car, whatever you're doing, start jotting down some notes for yourself if you want to, how you see some of these bad character traits in you. It's not a wrong thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Don't get depressed about it, obviously, but be honest and don't be morbid about it. Don't really dwell on it, because we're going to find that once we can conquer those things, we can replace them with a good character trait, which is what we want to do. So it's important to know the bad. Yes, it is. We don't live in a fairy tale world. We just pretend it doesn't exist. That does us no good whatsoever. But on the other hand, we don't want to get morbid about it, depressed about it, and become obsessive about it. That's also wrong. But to just look at it, face it, and be happy. How do we be happy? Okay, so we're going to discuss that. But that's where we got to. So hopefully you found this useful. Without Hashem, next week we're going to cover the good traits briefly. And then from there, I think what we'll do is we're going to go back to Likutei Moharan and start talking about one of the most effective strategies, which we already alluded to, where Nachman says is to go to the tzaddik, to the Talmid Chacham of the generation, and do bidui, which is like, whoa, what are you talking about? Bidui. Okay, so we'll have to discuss that, but that's what we're going to get to. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat group, so unless I'm not seeing things properly. Anybody want to say anything at this point, or no? Hopefully it was clear. Great, no problem. Yeah, Shikoach, I like that. Okay, go to your class right away there, Lou. Okay, and the rest of you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me during the week. Best way is through WhatsApp. If you want to call, you can call, but I really prefer WhatsApp. Okay, everybody be good. Take care. We'll see you next week.